The weakness of women is often words. You have to keep seducing a little bit on and on and on. You have to occasionally do surprises. Feeling like you were never loved, but you need it from the public is often what makes a charismatic, that quality. It makes you feel like you are the star, you are the most wonderful person. Not him or her, but you. All the attention is on you. The problem that a man will have in this situation is he's so worried that he's going to offend the woman, that she's going to think that all he wants is sex. He's trying to be nice, and so he's reluctant to take the last step, right? But then to the woman that signals, you've been doing this all along, you don't desire me that much, you're not willing to do something kind of aggressive. This is the moment that the woman wants something aggressive. She doesn't want you to hit her, but she wants you to take the initiative and do something which signals that you are so attracted to her, you are so in love with her, that you're just gonna like pounce on her. And that's what ends a seduction. That's what's powerful, that's what moves the other person. But the fact that you're hesitating ruins the whole effect. So at the very last moment, it's your boldness that will consummate it. It's the boldness that in this situation, the woman actually wants. The man has been doing all of these things that have quite honestly require some effort, right? He's put, if it's been over the course of a couple months, he's been working at it, right? He's been doing these things. He's been taking you out here. He's been buying you things. You're also doing things as well. I'm not saying it's totally one-sided, but he's been putting in all this effort. Now he's got what he wants and it's all gone, right? Now he doesn't need to take you out to a nice restaurant. Now he doesn't need to dress up nicely. He can just sit at home in his shorts and order pizza in and watch games. He starts to take you for granted, right? He stops seducing. Now, I'm saying in this 24 here, obviously you're not going to be giving the same amount of effort that you did earlier on. That would be exhausting. No, you have to keep seducing a little bit on and on and on. You have to occasionally do surprises. You have to occasionally take them to someplace special. You have to be willing to keep dressing nicely or do something different, to have that slight theatrical, that sort of fantasy element. There still has to be a little bit of mystery involved. If the other person becomes so familiar, then the spark, then the charge between you will dissipate. So there has to be a little bit of mystery, a little bit of space still between you, and some surprise. So naturally, it's going to get lesser the longer you're together, but it can't completely disappear. And a lot of women complain that he just stopped trying. Everything suddenly I just became somebody familiar to him, and all the magic was gone, and all the things that he used to do that were full of effort, all of it has just gone like that. And it's a devastating feeling, like I'm not worth it anymore, it's all over. And that kills the relationship. So I maintain in the book that seduction was a strategy that women invented thousands of years ago because of the uneven power dynamic, quite honestly. So sex was the one tool back then that a woman had to gain power over a man. And so women invented the art of seduction as a way to turn the dynamic around, right? To have the power over the man. So they developed this very elaborate art of how to hook a man so that he would become her slave, which was very, very powerful. And so the archetype of that is like Cleopatra, right? So the siren is the most primal, the most primitive form of seduction, of seductress. And sirens were literally these mythical creatures that were on rocks in the sea, and their song was so powerful that men on ships would drive into the water to reach them, and then they would drown and die. So the siren is so powerfully attractive, so powerfully seductive, has such a sexual energy that men will dive into the water and kill themselves over them. They're so attracted to him. And so the siren kind of exudes this kind of very powerful sexual energy. She doesn't have to say anything. There was a charge about her that was very sexual and very powerful. And men would go wild over this, and they would pursue her, and then she would know how to keep stringing them along. So Cleopatra, who, as far as we know, was not incredibly beautiful. She had a bit of a nose, and the people who described her, she wasn't like a classic beauty. She was a master of psychology. She created this theater as if she were a living goddess. And men would go crazy over that. And the other classic example is Marilyn Monroe. So a siren will seduce any kind of man. She'll seduce the great athlete, like Marilyn Monroe seduced Joe DiMaggio. She will seduce the intellectual, like she seduced Arthur Miller. No man can resist a siren because of that energy that she exudes, that's so primal, and it's so rare. There are not that many sirens around, but a siren is the most devastating seductress of them all. Men are very visually oriented, right? But it's also the psychology involved that she's playing on, which brings us to the next one, the rake. And the reason I bring that up, the rake is the kind of most dominant male form of seducer. The rake is the male form of the siren. And there was a rake called Gabriele D'Annunzio, an Italian poet, that no woman could resist. It was amazing. He was one of the ugliest men. He was truly ugly. He was short. He had this horrible skin color. He had a nose, but he was a poet. And his words just flowed, because the weakness of women is often words. And he was a fountain of beautiful words, and he was a master of seduction. The rake is a man who's really, really interested in women. He's interested in their world, in their spirit. He often grew up with maybe a mother and sisters, so he's very comfortable around women. He knows them. He loves women. He loves their world, their energy, their spirit. But not a single woman can ever satisfy him. So he has to have 50, he has to have 100, he has to have 1,000 women in his life. But the fact that he's so interested in their world, he's so attentive, is what's so devastatingly attractive to the woman. And he's so confident in himself. He's got this kind of male energy. He's like a tiger. He just knows who he is. And I'll just leave with one quote. There was a woman who was seduced by Errol Flynn, who was probably one of the greatest male seducers ever. And she said, sitting next to him was like having drunk 5 martinis. Me, I felt like so relaxed in his presence, because he made me feel so relaxed by his confidence that I felt drunk without even having drunk anything, because of his confidence. It's just simply like a Casanova who's able to fill your fantasies. He's very romantic. They know what you secretly really want, and they bring it to life in real time. They are the living incarnation of your deepest fantasies, right? And so Casanova, and also Rudolph Valentino, the great actor in the 20s. And the dandy is somebody who's got a bit of androgyny to them. So the female dandy would be like Marlene Dietrich or Madonna. They kind of sometimes will dress like a man, but they're definitely a woman. They're not sexless, but they're a woman with a male streak. They're a man with a feminine streak. And Freud talks about this. We all are kind of bisexual by nature. In other words, at birth, men have strong feminine qualities to them genetically, and the same for women. So we're almost sometimes attracted to the gender, our own gender, in the other person, which is a strange quality, but it's very much a very powerful trend. And you never suspect a child of being a seducer, but children are very seductive. So if you're very natural, if you're very comfortable, and you don't have much of a filter on what you say and what you do like a child does, but it's so innocent. It's like, that's why we fall in love with animals or pets, right? They're so innocent. They can't help being what they are, right? So we fall in love with them for that very quality. Whereas people who try really hard, it's very off-putting. They're not being who they are. But when somebody is just can't help it, this is who they are, they're naturally playing these pranks, they're naturally making these jokes, they're naturally upset and emotional. We're naturally drawn to them. And Charlie Chaplin was kind of the icon of that. He played the kind of ultimate sort of child, even in his 20s, 30s, and 40s. And it was devastatingly seductive on women, that quality. And the charmer is a seducer without sex. So it'll be like someone who's a social seducer. And you say things that make the other person feel so good. You make everybody around you feel, it's like high-level social skills. There's a famous quote about, there was two Englishmen. There was Benjamin Disraeli, who was a prime minister under Queen Victoria, and then there was his rival, a man named Gladstone. And they kind of hated each other. And a princess sat in between them once at a party. And she said, talking to Mr. Gladstone, I felt like he was the smartest man in the world. But talking to Mr. Disraeli, I felt like I was the smartest woman in the world. And that's what a charmer is. He makes you feel like you are the star, you are the most wonderful person. Not him or her, but you. All the attention is on you. And he has a high level of social skill to make you completely feel comfortable and make you feel like you are the most brilliant person in the world. The way I define it is a person who's charismatic, it's like they have a light inside of them, like a light bulb or a lamp that's inside of them. You can't see it, but it animates everything from them. Their face, their eyes, their gestures, they feel like they're lit up from within, and it's very powerful. They have this confidence and this energy. I talk in there about John F. Kennedy, who had charisma, and I talk about Marilyn Monroe, who was a charismatic. And the thing about people with deep levels of charisma, the weird thing about charismatics is they often come from broken homes. They come from a childhood where they didn't get any love. Almost invariably you will find this. And what that means is, in order to get the love that everybody wants, the validation and the attention, they have to get it from other people. They have to get it from crowds. They have to get it from an audience. They have to get it from the camera and all the millions of people who are going to watch them. They have such a need for love and attention because they never got it, that they project that out onto the world. That is the lamp that's lighting them up from the inside and making everything that they do seem so animated and so exciting. So feeling like you were never loved, but you need it from the public is often what makes a charismatic, that quality. And you will always, almost always find that they come from deprived childhoods. Knowing how to play a little hard to get would be good, a skill to reinvent that's kind of been lost now. Knowing how to hook a man, but keep him hooked, and to kind of signal that you're interested in him, that there's something physical, and men are very visually oriented, so there's something about you that excites them. But you getting them to pursue you. You see, men like to pursue. We're like hunters. We like the chase. To get a man to chase after you is exactly what he wants. But if you're too available, if you're just like surrendering after the first date, then he'll lose interest because there's no chase involved. So you've got to know how to kind of put a little honey in the bait and keep him going and withdraw and say, no, but not too much. And if you can get a man to chase you, then you're the one in control of that. You're the one in control of the dynamic. It's ironic, but the fact that you are getting him to chase you means that you are the one in control of the dynamic. Yeah. We're so stupidly logical sometimes that we don't realize that things are kind of ironic, things are the reverse of what they seem. We're too literal minded. So to get somebody to pursue you means that you are the one actually doing the work. You're the one actually in control. So it's not like you're chasing him, but you are in some ways doing that by withdrawing, by getting him to come after you. But yeah, if you're the aggressor, if you're chasing the man, That could be interesting for a man, and that might lead to sex on the first or second date, but I don't think it's going to lead to a long-term, to anything that it's going to be very exciting and have a lot of spice to it. So keep in mind that what excites a man is the chase itself. It's what makes men cheat on their wives, quite frankly. Everything has become too obvious, too familiar. There's no more chase involved. Now there's this new young woman, this secretary, this woman in my office. I get to chase her, right? There's an animal I get to hunt. That'll happen. That's why a man will cheat on his wife, because there's no more chasing going on in the relationship.